So I'm always going to look at it because there's new ways of thinking, there's new technologies, there's new information that comes, and we want to be able to adjust and iterate on that.
My name is Matt Reiner, managing partner at Capital Investment Advisors, CEO of Wellness Strategies, an author, podcast host, and also a speaker to the wealth management community. My mission is to help every family in this country have access and be served by a human financial advisor. That we all have to live in the moment and not try to force progress too quickly. Let it happen and commit to a long-term strategy in your life, in your business, and in your investment portfolio.
And now, your host and my dad, Matt Reiner.
Welcome to another episode of the Future Proof Advisor podcast. The whole goal of this podcast is to explore what is necessary for us to elevate the client experience, engage our teams, and advance our bottom lines. It's about being proactive to change, not reactive to changes, and exploring what I feel are the three necessary elements to be innovative and to accept and adopt and push forward changes in the world. In my mind, it starts with our mind. We have to have the mindset to be able to think about change, to think about things differently, to be curious. We have to have also the leverage that gives us time to explore, to understand, and that means creating processes, understanding how we're doing. And both of these combined give us the opportunity to go and explore and innovate. Because innovation without the right mindset won't happen long term because it's hard, it's difficult. And we don't have the time to innovate if we don't create the leverage. So it's those three that are necessary to help us explore. And that's what we're trying to do on the Future Proof Advisor podcast. So at the core of curiosity is really a deep level of self-awareness, right? To be curious, we have to really understand who we are. We can't be feeling that we are the smartest guy in the room or because we have years of experience that we have all the answers, because I've never met someone that was that person who was really curious, right? It's always the people that are honed in and like to talk about themselves that lack the ability to be curious. And the ones that I have found to be the most curious, they understand that they don't know what they don't know. And they're willing to dive deep in questions, and they're willing to ask questions and explore topics that they may not feel that they're the experts in. And that's okay. That's actually invigorating to them, not doesn't hurt their self-confidence, right? They like to go and be insatiably curious and dive into things that may not be what they know. And even on the things that they know, these people continue to ask great questions because they know that they don't know everything about all the topics, even the topics they're very skilled at, and they want to get another person's perspective. And that's what I find. These curious people, they don't stop at surface level questioning. They get to the root feeling and reason that someone has an opinion, and they do it in a non-judgmental, in a very conversational way. It's a true skill. It's an art, and it's something that I have envied and tried to follow and understand, because I think that curiosity is the one thing that connects us with others and that also keeps us young. Because if we stop being curious, we start becoming outdated, and that's not what we want. Curiosity generates new information for individuals, no matter your age, no matter your level of expertise. And really, information is knowledge, but knowledge alone isn't what creates the impact. Knowledge in this more technologically driven world is actually becoming commoditized. Knowledge doesn't create change. It's easy to access knowledge in anything that we want. Information, like I said, has been commoditized, but knowledge to me is like the stars in the sky, right? They are amazing. They provide sunlight. They're great to have. But the real beauty in the sky comes when you are able to connect the stars together and create constellations. And constellations in this conversation is all about wisdom. Constellations are wisdom. the act of putting unique and different pieces of knowledge together that you learn to then create a unique and differentiated insight on a topic, that is wisdom. And that is the ultimate outcome of curiosity. Curiosity is not a one-to-one outcome where I get curious, I learn new information, and I now have wisdom. That's not it. Curiosity allows you to build the bank of your stars in your mind to then put more stars together to create more unique and more frequent constellations to then provide more insightful wisdom. That's where we want to get to. And I've experienced this kind of power of constellation and wisdom. I remember it really fondly. It was years ago. I found myself wondering how people seem to know so much. I was always enthralled by these people at parties that, they had all these like pieces of knowledge from history or from like current news. And I was like, wow, that is impressive. And I always felt that I wanted to be that person. And, my rationalization was like, well, I don't need to be that person. I can just Google that and find that information. And those people just seem to always be the life of the party, and I wanted to find a way to be like them. But this realization ultimately came that there had to be more because I didn't feel that there was depth in what that was being said at those points in time. But it was like party talk. It created, this fun, entertaining environment, and it created some, small time connection, but not deep level connection. And I wanted to go deeper, and that's really the moment when I found myself saying there's something more to knowledge than just having the knowledge itself. Then I remember sitting at my desk researching a problem, and I was chasing one idea after another, right? And I was finally feeling like I was gaining that knowledge. I was like, oh, I have all this knowledge I can use at a party or at the bar, and I can be the life of the party. But then something actually happened when I was reading this one piece of information on this research I was doing. And I was able then to connect the dots to something I had read months before. And that connection helped to give me perspective into a whole new insight of this topic I was thinking about. And it was like I found this missing puzzle piece in the whole jumbled box. And I felt this like rush, a learner's high. And at that moment, right then, I realized that knowledge wasn't to have to go to parties to talk about, to create this like surface level connection. Rather, the knowledge was a matter of having it in your knowledge bank so that you can use it to connect dots in the future to give you a new perspective to understand a topic at a future point. And it changed the way that I think about gaining knowledge and using the knowledge and how I try to connect that knowledge to create real wisdom. And it finally gave me the answer of what is the difference between wisdom and knowledge, and they're not the same. The root of curiosity is not to gain more knowledge. It is to gain more knowledge to help create more constellations. That's a really salient point. I'm going to repeat it. The root of curiosity is not to gain more knowledge. It's to gain more knowledge to help create more constellations, right? We don't want to just have an abundance of knowledge. We want to have knowledge that we can connect together. But the world that we live in today doesn't present the environment for this, right? It's a world that wants quick answers, wants the answer and only the answer. And so if we want to get to the depth of what knowledge is beyond the answer, which would ultimately allow us to gain wisdom, then we must be intentional about our curiosity. Let's dive into curiosity, and let's start with the foundation of the different types of curiosity. I'm only going to talk about two types of curiosity, and I want to just define them so that we can level the playing field. And then we'll go a little bit deeper into what they each mean and how we utilize them in our world today. So curiosity, let's just level set on what the definition of curiosity is, right? The hunger for the unknown, a natural inclination that propels growth, learning, and creativity. Now, the two types of curiosity that we'll talk about is general curiosity and epistemic curiosity. And I'll cut to the chase so that I'm not going to bury the lead. General curiosity is not the answer, but let's explore general curiosity. General curiosity refers to a broad interest in novelty or experiencing something new. It's not necessarily tied to a desire for deep understanding, but instead, it shows that we have an openness to explore and discovery. Now, I'm not here to say that general curiosity is bad. I'm just saying that general curiosity is very surface level. It's shallow, it's impulsive. It's like, I just want to go and learn about and get this answer from here. So I'll go and use ChatGPT for that. Or I want to go get this answer from here because I'll use Google for that. And it's kind of like we're chasing the shiny ball, and the desire to continue the general curiosity tends to fade as the novelty wanes of that shiny ball. So general curiosity, yes, it's a step in the right direction. But this is also the trap that we get into in the world that we live in, that we're going to talk about later in the pod, that general curiosity gets us the answer, makes us feel like we're checking the box of being curious. But in the reality is that we're just getting the answer, we're spewing the answer, and we forget about that, which we'll talk about as well. And so it's not enough, but it's what we tend to lean on and lean towards in this technologically, content immersive of abundance world that we live in. On the other hand, though, is something called epistemic curiosity. Epistemic curiosity is the deep drive to acquire knowledge and understand something thoroughly. It really goes beyond surface level interest. And this is that type of curiosity that shows a hunger for comprehension and mastery. So let's just think about this for a second. General curiosity gets you the answer. Epistemic curiosity gets you mastery. And this is the type of curiosity that gets some of those health benefits and those neurotransmitters in your mind. Yeah, I'm getting nerdy here. Working, right? This is the type of curiosity that stimulates that drug that we generate inside our body called dopamine, and provides us a great sense of self and purpose. This is the type of curiosity that changes people because we've went so deep into topics. And this is the curiosity that ultimately changes businesses and creates and inspires innovation. This is about resolving complex issues. It's about gaining and acquiring new skills. And it's inspired by intellectual humility, knowing that we don't know everything. That is epistemic curiosity. Now, if you want to think about them in a different way, if you want an analogy for general versus epistemic curiosity, let's do it this way. General curiosity is the breadth, right? Helps you explore a diverse set of topics. You can go wide. Epistemic is the depth. It allows you to go deep, right? And ultimately, general curiosity helps you add more stars to your mental universe. That's the benefit of general curiosity. Epistemic curiosity helps you create more constellations. So they both are valuable, but epistemic curiosity is what drives the change, creates the constellations. And what we want to drive for, and we have to be intentional with this in a world of technology and abundance of content and information, that we have to be intentional that just because we get the answer doesn't mean we can move on. We have to understand the why behind the answer. That is epistemic curiosity. So let's go on to the second area. Curiosity helps us fulfill reaching self-actualization. And we've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy. The base is the physiological needs like air, water, food, and shelter. Then you have safety, and then you have love and belonging, and then you have esteem, and then you finally have self-actualization. Now, here's a funny thing is that Maslow never anticipated these ideas to become a pyramid or a hierarchy. He basically just had these are the steps in the process, and it over time became into Maslow's hierarchy or pyramid of needs that we see today. But what he did mention is that for those who wanted or actually reached self-actualization based on his research and his insights were individuals who were, you guessed it, highly curious. And so when we break down Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can see how each level of needs relates to curiosity. Let's just break down a few of them. Safety, for instance. Curiosity helps us identify risks and solutions to ensure we're safe. Otherwise, we are very much at risk. Curiosity is the one that sees the risk at hand and the solutions that are needed. Love and belonging. How does this impact curiosity? Well, curiosity is about different cultures, perspectives, and experiences, which foster, when you are curious about those individuals, it creates empathy and connection. but even more so, being curious by asking questions, which we have talked about on this podcast many of times, helps you understand others, but more importantly, it creates that connection and it makes this sense of love and belonging with connection that is there. And that all is inspired by curiosity. Let's go to esteem. Esteem is all about respect, recognition, freedom, self esteem. That's what esteem is about in Maslow's hierarchy. And curiosity motivates skill development and mastery, which when we have mastery or we develop new skills, we feel a sense of achievement. That sense of achievement can then drive recognition. The recognition plus the achievement of doing something new or gaining a new skill boosts self-esteem, all driven by curiosity. And then finally is self-actualization. This goes to what Maslow already talked about with regards to his hierarchy of needs, that the people that reach self-actualization were curious individuals. And that makes sense because to become the most that one can be involves knowing that there is no finish line. We have never reached our highest potential. We have to constantly be curious and exploratory to go find what that is, who we are. And every day, every month, every year, every decade, we are becoming different people. New information, new things are happening to us, new evolutions are happening, and we must be looking to explore our own capabilities, our own interest in the world at large to ultimately reach and fulfill being the best possible person that we can be. And so I think that shows that curiosity actually drives us towards self-actualization. And if you then take this research that a gentleman by the name of Todd Kashdan did, he said that the core component of well-being and satisfaction was curiosity. Curious people showed that they had higher levels of happiness and meaning in life. Curiosity, it drives satisfaction because you think about it. When we learn something new, when we get recognized, when we create connection, those are like the foundational elements of happiness. We feel better when we learn something new, right? We feel better when we can do something we didn't think we could. We feel better when we create connection. And in order to get there, we have to have this sense of curiosity. And so in my mind, curiosity is the drug for happiness. If we could learn something new every day, we will gain a dopamine hit and feel the benefits of instant gratification because we're spending time exploring, we learn something new, it makes us feel good. And it becomes like this cycle where it's addictive, but it's an addiction that is super beneficial as well. So let's talk about the world of Google and AI, right? We don't have a problem anymore to find the answers to our questions. I mean, I remember growing up where I would have to use the encyclopedia, the World Book, and we'd get a new set of World Books every single year. And like to go and find new information, you either had to go to the library and use one of those things where you put it like a laminate sheet under the light and you read like an article from 1935 or something like that, or you'd have to go into a World Book and it's like A through Z, etc. And it was hard. But now finding the answer or finding the information is easier than ever. I can ask ChatGPT, I can Google it. It's all now commoditized. And what this has led to is that we now seek the answer and we then spew the answer to seem knowledgeable and smart, and then we forget the answer. It's the exact same thing that happened in grade school for all of us. We would go study for the test really hard. We'd take the test. We'd forget what we took and what we studied. It happens. But that is the challenge because that's not true curiosity. That's finding an answer to take an action, not to learn the information. Curiosity, though, on the other hand, ignites parts of the brain tied to deep learning. This is what, it excites the brain with the journey of finding information. And if you think about this, the combination of exciting the brain while also igniting the desire for deep learning, the combination of those two creates this like massive stickiness that allows the brain to remember what you learn, which then allows that star to shine brighter and has more of an opportunity to create a better constellation in your mind. So let's nerd out for a second. I mean, I kind of love this stuff. It's super interesting. And so we're going to nerd out for a second. So if you don't want to nerd out, then just fast forward maybe like 30 seconds. But here's how this works, right? When the brain detects a gap in knowledge, this activates the brain's ventral striatum. What that means is that the brain says, well, I don't know something, so now I'm really intrigued by learning it, right? And then that part of the brain is linked to the rewarding part of the brain, which and the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is what's responsible for decision making and planning. So this is like one of those, as Daniel Kahneman talks about, one of those kind of system 2 decisions where you have to have deep thought. System 1 is like you just make reactionary thoughts. The prefrontal cortex ignites when it comes to making deep thought decisions. So the combination of both of these ignite area of the brains that motivate us to seek new information, because now we identified a gap and we are now interested. We want to go fill that gap, which then says to the reward brain, like, hey, go fill this gap. You're going to get excited. You're going to have a reward. And then the prefrontal cortex now ignites because we now need to use some decision-making and planning tools. We need to go deeper. And so these now work together. And then what happens is as we seek the information, the gap that was detected is now closed. So we have solved a problem and found the answer. And when this happens, dopamine is released in the brain, which makes us feel good. And that's the feel-good release that we have in our brain, and that makes us want to go and do this again. So we feel good. That satisfaction makes us want to do it again. And then we do it again. This is the same reaction that we get for any pleasure in our life, right? It's that we have this like hit of dopamine, which is that feel good in our body that then makes us want to do it again. It causes addiction. But in this sense, we're able to now create positive addiction. And throughout this entire process, the part of the brain that gets activated as well is the hippocampus. Hippocampus. I'm just a Southern boy, so I don't know exactly how to say it, but it's the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories. And now that this is activated through this process and this journey of filling this gap and void and having this reward system that's like this circular reference of rewards, it creates that part. So now the information that we learn is now part of this memory bank. And now it's deeper in our minds. It's more real. We now have this learning of it. And so I think that a way for us to think of this from an analogical standpoint or analogy is that seeking an answer and spewing a response is like lighting a match, right? It burns quickly and it goes out. But curiosity is like building a campfire. It takes effort, but it creates lasting warmth and light that lingers. And that is what we want. We want more campfires. We don't want as many matches. And so we have to use the technology we have to ignite the brain and understand how our mental systems work so that we understand what we need to do to create knowledge and wisdom over time. So to wrap up this conversation, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. And I've teased it a little bit throughout this entire podcast is why does all this talk about curiosity matter in the advent of AI and technology? Shouldn't that help us? And here's the answer. Yes and no. It's both. Because, like I've said, technology has democratized information. It has allowed us to consume more information than ever before, and it has made it easier than ever to do this. I am a technologist. I love technology. I'm all for pushing the utilization of technology further and faster. But I am also a proponent of leveraging technology for the intended use of technology and not to create shortcuts. Technology has democratized information, which should allow us to go gather and do deeper research quicker, more effectively than ever before. Not necessarily just to find the simple answer and move on. Technology has provided so much value with allowing unique groups to connect and collaborate on questions, and and have it easier for them to create communities. I think about Reddit and Twitter, or X, which has allowed people to find communities. And they are able to aggregate voices together to go make a stance. Like that is a superpower of technology. But the abundance of information that is now presented via these technologies, it really creates this like blue ocean that paralyzes us. It paralyzes the human in many different ways, because here's two scenarios that we can go through. When you think about now we have all this information, we can either go all in and try to find all the information that we can, which is basically unlimited. You can be doing that for days, weeks, months, and years. And then you find yourself deep with all this information and you have no ability to use AI some to synthesize the information or an ability to act on the information. You have all this information, but like, what does it all mean together? And by the time you're so deep into it, you have forgotten the reason that you started it. And now you don't know how to act on it. And that causes a paralysis that leads to people wanting just to use technology just to get the answer because they feel that they will go too deep into it. Now, the other side of the coin is that because the vast world of information is robust and vast, we don't even start because we don't know where to start. So we just avoid accessing all the information at all because you don't even know, do I go to Google? Do I go to ChatGPT? What do I ask it? Like, I don't even know. And now you're putting so much mental stimulation that your brain is just like, I'm exhausted just thinking about this, that we're just going to move on, or I'm going to go use a shortcut and just find the answer, and that will be it. You know, it reminds me of walking into a grocery store and like just walking in with no intention. And you go, you don't have a recipe, you don't have a plan, and you like see all of this food and you're like, well, where do I even start? And you may grab a few items or leave empty-handed, right? Because it's so overwhelming. And we haven't created anything. We went to the grocery store, we bought some things, but we haven't made anything of what we bought. But when you go to the grocery store with a recipe and the ingredients necessary to follow that recipe, you are like, you are a man or a woman on a mission. You know which aisles you need to go to. You get your things, you go to the checkout line, you go home, you make your amazing meal, and you've now been able to sift through the vastness and have the outputs to act and create something that is useful. And that is how we have to think about technology, is that you have to have intention of curiosity. You have to have limits and bounds around what level of curiosity, but you have to go deeper than just the answer, which is the last challenge. Not the last, but the last challenge we'll talk about that technology poses on curiosity is that it is easy for us just to seek the answer and not the reason for the answer, right? We are in a world today that incentivizes speed and correctness, right? We have been taught in our education system, you either pass or you fail. The answer is right or it's wrong. Good answers are applauded. Bad answers are failed. So we have too much on our plate in the world that we live in today. Things are going so fast that for us to take the time to explore the why, we just need to get the answer and move on. And that is general curiosity. And we will always forget it right after spewing it. But the world is motivating us and incentivizing us just to give them the answer. So to overcome all this, we have to be intentional with how we use technology. We have to understand the pros and the cons of it, be intentional of our curiosity to go find what we want, and we have to go beyond just the answer. We must debate with ChatGPT to challenge our beliefs. ChatGPT gives us his answer. Let's debate. Give me the other side of that. Why did you give me this answer? What would someone that doesn't believe this think? And let's go and explore it from that standpoint. We must distill the information we gather and be able to explain it in 2 simple sentences to a 5th grader. If we can't do that, then we don't truly understand it and we're staying on the surface. The power of technology has allowed us to access more information, and we must leverage that power and not just utilize it for the shortcuts that it provides, because otherwise curiosity will go away and we'll become reliant only on technology and not use our minds. And the mind is what separates us from technology. So, you know, as I think about this and I close out here, as a leader, as a friend, as a spouse, or as a team member, in my mind, the greatest gift that you can give to yourself and those you care for is to be curious. The advancements in our world, there is no doubt in my mind, and I will wave this flag, have been incredible and very positive. And they have created challenges as well, just like any good thing does. It creates unique new challenges. One of them is that it has lessened our need to be curious. That's one of the downfalls of technology. It's lessened the need to grind out to find the answers, to go to a world book or to go to a library to search for the information. We have been given an easy button in this world, and the easy button has given us so much, but it also has taketh so much in my mind. You know, we must become aware of this environment and explore beyond the simple answer. You know, curiosity is ultimately about time. Yeah, the answer is easy and quick to find, and you can use that for your party talk, to have knowledge at the bar. to show someone that make them believe you're so smart this one time. But when they get to know you, they'll see beyond that surface level, because the why behind the answer takes time. The why behind the answer creates longevity in your wisdom and your knowledge. That time is the juice. That is where the great parts live. That is where the ROI on curiosity resides. So what I want to do today is I want to push all of us to take the time to go down the rabbit holes, because that is really, simply put, what we should do. That is what we are meant to do. That is what our minds want us to do. So that is curiosity. If you enjoyed today's episode, please forward it to a friend, like the episode, leave a comment, good or bad. I just want to know what you thought of it so that I can continue to improve it. I am curious about how this landed. And be sure to subscribe to our channel so you can be alerted of all of our new episodes each week, whether it's a solo podcast like this one or one with some of our great guests that we do as well. But before you leave, I want you to answer our poll question of the week, which is linked in the summary. It's a simple question, very simple. How curious would you say you are? With that, I say thank you. I say thank you for spending time with me today. It means the world to me, and I'll never take it for granted to have people that want to listen to the words that I want to say. So I say go out there and be part of the change that betters our industry. We have an amazing industry, and the future is bright. Stay well, be well, and keep on exploring.